Julie Gelling, Conservative MEP for the South West. We've had the figures on what fishermen in the South West are going to be allowed to catch next year and how many days they're going to be allowed to go out to sea. Firstly, on that point, good news that there's going to be a freeze, no cut in the number of days fishermen can go out to sea. What's your reaction?
Well, yes, no cut in the number of days at sea. That's good, because it means that they've got a little bit more time to fish selectively if they have the gear to do that. We've had some cuts in quota, in catch. That's very disappointing. Obviously, the suggested cuts were even higher, so to some extent you could claim a good result, and certainly I know our Minister tried very hard to make sure that South West fishermen were supported, but still those cuts on place and sole are very disappointing. They're disappointing clearly in the short term in terms of the take and the financial viability of the fishery, but they're also disappointing in that they are really not helping towards our aim of cutting discards. Now, we've spent 3 years in Parliament doing the new common fisheries policy, and this really has to be the last time, guaranteed the last time, that we come out with an annual figure. There has to be a plan, there has to be a trajectory, we have to know what we're going to do to get to this MSY figure. That's the maximum sustainable yield, so the maximum that we can fish without affecting the stock long term by 2020. So we're in 2014 next year. We need then a plan, and then we need to stick with it. And then we need to support fishermen in making the gear changes and the operational changes that they need to make. But we also need to support them by giving them a clear focus going forward on what the catch will be, and not keep swapping and changing and arguing about the science. You know, yet again we've seen, on the one hand, some saying that we're in a good place on some fisheries, but the Commission saying no, we've got to cut quota. So it comes as a bit of a shock after we've just had all of the good news about CFP to find that actually we've made little change to the way we're operating. And this, as I say, Fisheries Committee's got to look at this. This has to be the last time. Next year's got to be different.
I mean, talking to fishermen, sounding very despondent, actually, fishermen from the southwest, looking at these figures, that, you know, they're saying this could mean, you know, jobs at risk. This could mean really big difficulties for them next year. They feel that they've put in investment, they've improved their gear, they're cutting discards, and yet they say the result of this is going to be more discards, because they're not going to be allowed to bring ashore the fish that they're catching in their boats.
That, of course, is the short-term result, because the discard ban, which would allow them then to land everything they catch, and there would be certain derogations and flexibilities built in, that doesn't come in for another couple of years. So they're in a little bit of a hiatus period here, a bit of a rock and a hard place, really. So I would like to see our Minister looking at ways in which he can help. And I know he's done his best on this negotiation in terms of absolute numbers, but it's not just about numbers now, it's about a long-term plan.
And before we get to that long-term plan, just looking for a moment just at this year ahead, how do you rate the chances of fishermen in the southwest when you see cuts nearly across the board on some of their major stocks?
Well, it's going to be tough. It's a real challenge, but then they're not strangers to that. We've had these challenges before, and I'm sure that they will come through. But obviously I need to talk with fishermen in the southwest, as that I haven't had a chance to do that. This deal was only arrived at overnight, so I'm not entirely sure what exactly the job losses could be. I hope that there won't be any. I hope that they will, as they usually do, remain flexible and be in good shape for when we come into the new period under the new CFP.
And you mentioned that the common fisheries policy has only just been finally agreed, and the aim of that, one of the central aims of that, is to do away with discards. What then do you make of the fact that in this coming year, the quota cuts, the fishermen say, will lead to more discards, not less?
Well, this is it's the inevitable result of the transition period, I'm afraid. There really isn't much we can do about that. What the Commission have done is they've looked at the CFP going forward in terms of trying to get to that maximum sustainable yield, and obviously they're setting numbers based on that. But what they haven't done is take into account the fact that fishermen are not in a place yet to be able to react to that, because they're working towards a couple of years' time. So there is this bit of a hiatus, and I do think that fishermen need to be supported.
Then a word about the long term, because I know that's a concern of yours. Do these figures give an indication of the direction then for achieving a discards ban, for the future of the southwest industry? Is this the direction we're now headed, more cuts?
I guess that's the case. I mean, there's two things happening here. There's a reduction in catch, and there's been no reduction in days at sea. So there's a clear intention there from the Commission and from the Council that that's the way fishing's going to go. But it's only the very beginning of that, and as I would like to see that really set out into a proper regional plan. The CFP was to deliver to us regional control, so that's being able to talk, for example, in the southwest, our fishermen and our fishermen's fish producing organisations to sit down and talk about the long-term plan. Now, I'm waiting to hear when that's going to happen. I'm not a technical expert, it won't involve me, but I'd like to know that it is involving the people on the ground, so I'll be working with the Minister to make sure that happens.
And then just finally, to sum up then on these latest figures, you say you're going to be talking now to fishermen and perhaps to ministers back in the UK. What can be perhaps rectified from these very deep cuts for southwest fishermen to be able to be viable for the forthcoming year?
Yeah, I'm not sure that there's much that can be done in this forthcoming year. That's the difficulty. I don't know if there is any flexibility, and that's what I'm going to try and explore.